Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Rex Bear, reporting to you live in a garage down by the river. How the heck are you? Beautiful day today out here in southern Colorado. It's cloudy, it's about 60 degrees, and it's the middle of May. What happened? Was it that volcano that went off in Tonga last year? I don't know, but I'm looking for Al Gore. I was hoping for some global warming. Doesn't look like we're going to get it today. And folks, that's not what we're here to talk about. We have a wonderful guest. He's been on the Leak Project before, and hopefully we'll have many future conversations in the future. Mark Fiorentino, and he's going to share his views on how the universe really works based on his study and research of Einstein's unified field theory. He's going to discuss how the applications of Einstein's theory can be used to travel through space, renewable energy, future technologies. He's also going to talk about the connection of conspiracy theories, including UFOs, alien technology, and the type of technologies that they use, as well as other controversial topics, such as near-death experiences, revelations that are linked to the theory of super relativity. Have you got your collagen yet from healthwithleak.com? What the heck are you waiting for? This stuff is awesome. So I've been taking collagen now from Health with Leak for the past couple years. I think this stuff is amazing. It's great for your skin. It's great for your joints. It's great for your whole body, actually. It's one of the most abundant proteins in your body. And after the age of 20, your body produces substantially less. You can get yours today at healthwithleak.com. You're going to get a 51% discount and free shipping in the U.S. I actually just put a scoop in my favorite beverage. Sometimes I'll put a scoop in my latte. Stuff's awesome. Healthwithleak.com. Get yours today. Some say it's as close as you're going to get to a real fountain of youth. Hello. Today's talking points: SlipWave, the signature of God, the discovery of star formations, and how they actually form, the discovery of the origins of mass, exploring the three primary forces of nature, how to break the light speed barrier, how to create an anti-gravity field, how to build a SlipWave spatial bias drive system, which is like a warp drive, the new cosmology theory, Project Sunshade, Stargate technology. Wow, I got my popcorn and it is organic. How you doing, Mark? It's great to see you, man.
Pretty good. There's a lot of topics in that book.
Yeah. Now your book is available, right? So I can get it at Amazon, or is there somewhere else you would prefer I get it?
Yeah, you can get it off my website if you want a signed copy. Otherwise, you can get it off of Amazon. You can get it in the Kindle form or the paperback.
And I just go to super-relativity.com.
Right.
Order yours, get it autographed, and then you have that quantum connection with Mark. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So,
yeah.
So what have you been up to, man? You've been decoding all sorts of stuff that is like at the fringe of physics here. It appears so.
Yeah, I was told, over the years, many psychics keep bringing this discovery thing up, and I was really not that interested in the early parts of my life about that. I was more interested in things that other people mainly were interested in: personal relationships, health, things like that. And just every once in a while, they would say, hey, there's not an archangel, it was some kind of angel from high up, in the spirit realm, having to do with universal concepts. And I'm saying, what the heck is this all about? Why are they visiting with me? He says, are you writing a technical paper? And I said, yeah. As a matter of fact, I'm writing something about the EPR paradox, which is a hobby of mine way back when, trying to help Einstein out and his research. And I thought, that's an awfully odd coincidence. This lady who doesn't know anything about that and who I'm talking to about personal things brings up out of the blue a 9-foot-tall angel from high up. And it's not the first time. I mean, the first time it happens was when I'm 20. And they make a prediction that I'm going to make some great discovery. And I just kind of wrote it off as, yeah, well, maybe that'll happen, maybe not. But, I'm just a kid that's interested in, am I going to be married? Am I going to have children? That kind of stuff. And it's popped up, and it was a theme throughout my life, all the way up until this point when I retired and decided to write the book just for something to do when I retired. And it blossomed into this incredible story, a technical story and discovery. And so here we are today in what I would have to classify as an adventure. And what I've discovered from listening to all these near-death people, we're all on an adventure. I have a very specific one having to do with this scientific work and discoveries that's been revealed to me. And let's face it, I did write a book with a lot of technical information and discovery in it. So there must be something to all this that's going on right now. And today we're going to talk about that adventure and technical details, things I'm working on, mainly gravity and anti-gravity, which gives me a great deal of concern because people don't seem to fare well out there who work on anti-gravity discoveries. So I'm a little concerned, but I feel the need that it should be done, that humanity needs this technology, and I do want to help bring it forward. I'm not even going to try to patent anything. I'm going to write it up and put it out there, and hopefully the world can use it and start building interstellar spacecraft.
You know, it's funny because a couple of days ago, I actually did a podcast with Darcy Weir, and he just came out with a documentary called Secret Space UFOs, Fast Walkers. And one of the things I like about Darcy is, you know, kind of like what we were talking about before we got started, is we are looking for the truth. We're tired of the fluff, you know, and so Darcy's doing the same thing. I mean, he's documenting. He does documentary films, and he's taking footage that has been in like NASA files or something, the older stuff where you would see these weird things fly into the atmosphere and then fly out. And then on camera, they'd be like, well, we see some weird metallic blankets. And clearly they don't look like blankets. They're like metallic orbs. You know what I mean? So Darcy's looking for the truth. You're looking for the truth. I'm looking for the truth. And it's a tough truth to find. It is a tough truth to find. And there's been so many people out there that have either intentionally or unintentionally muddied the waters. And hey, it's a very easy subject to muddy. I get it. It's a topic that is, I don't understand it yet. You know, I mean, I don't know. I want to believe, but what is it? Are they interdimensional? Are they multidimensional? Is it all of the above? Is it just an illusion? Is it just swamp gas? It's probably not just swamp gas. But clearly there's something out there that seems to be presenting itself. And so I said to Darcy, I was like, Darcy, what if I made a spaceship in my garage? You know, somebody gave me the technology, I made a spaceship, and then I blasted off into space. Would these things stop me? Would these things actually stop me from leaving a specific part of the atmosphere? I don't know. So tell us how to make a spaceship, because I want to find out.
No, I don't think the aliens would stop us. The people who are our own worst enemy is us, humanity. We're holding ourselves down, and it's all across the board. It's not just in physics, not just in science, not just having to do with free energy, which they're really wickedly holding us down there. So far, when I talk about this in a lot of shows, when I go back and listen to it, somebody's edited it, and some of my words get deleted or cut out. I've seen that on 3 different shows so far. But I put it this
Whoa. That's kind of spooky, man.
Talk about it, I'll stop. You know, just somebody's got to tell me. I guess I don't want to, harm to myself or my family, but I have a love for this truth and to get this technology out there. Doggone it, it's fun studying this. And what I've discovered has come about because of the experiments I've done in my lab here at home, and some of the testimony coming from Bob Lazar, and some of the work coming from Thomas Townsend Brown. Putting that all together, and Paul Ehrenfest, physicist, as well, of course, as Einstein and Maxwell and these others, is that here's the bottom line. I thought out something called the SlipWave, the cause of particle motion, and I talk about that in my book. That's SlipWave 1.0. Since that book has come out, I've improved that. Now we're at 2.0, and I think this is the full and complete explanation for particle motion. Why particles just seem to be able to go by themselves without jet engines on the back. I mean, that's a question that stumped physicists since the beginning of physics. And Einstein went after, he was the only one really that gave it a try. And I can prove it to you that he looked into this and failed to find this important piece of information. in his unified field theory of gravitation and electricity in July 25th, 1925, the last two sentences of his paper say this: nevertheless, I'm still far away from claiming the physical validity of the equations I derive. This is talking about his unified field theory. The reason for that is that I did not succeed in deriving equations of motion for particles yet. He knew how important it was because the motions of particles breathe life into the universe. If they're not moving, they're not interacting, the universe goes dark. We couldn't see, hear, feel, sense anything because all mass would dissipate, magnetism, no light, there would be nothing. So it was really important to know why the particles move. And in so discovering that, one will discover, if you discover how particles move, then you can emulate that, like the Wright brothers did, copying how birds fly to make the airplane. We could copy how particles move to make a spaceship, an interstellar spacecraft. So this is important. So what I've discovered, and I'm writing now, and I've spent months on it, it's incredibly difficult. It starts out simple, but then when you start describing the structure of particles, it becomes very complicated. And that's where I'm at right now. And basically, it's just this simple. Particles, a field that is emitted from them that comes from the electrostatic field, which is a twist of space. And when that happens, you get a secondary field, which is a cardioid or heart-shaped field. This field is actually a very weak gravitational field. And it sets up, you can see the lines of force on charges or, plus negative charges, or in a magnet, you have them going in one end and going out the other end. That actually creates the cardioid-shaped field, which is a two-part gravitational field. On one end, the inward pointing end emits what I call Gravity Two, a very weak gravitational field of attraction, and that's in the front part of the particle as it moves forward. On the backside is the anti-gravity field, and that way the lines of force on that end are pushing out. And so what you get is lines that are going like this through it and causing it, by virtue of Newton's third law of reaction, there's an equal and opposite reaction. You move space this way, the craft moves that way, or the particle moves that way. And that's how you make an interstellar spaceship. You realize that, in fact, this universe moves particles or warp drives using gravity. And you don't see this normally with magnets or regular electrostatic fields unless they're huge. You get a huge megawatt magnet or a huge millions of volts of electrostatic charge, you'll begin to see the gravitational effect. And there's some videos on YouTube where they make the Thomas Townsend Brown lifter. You can see the whole thing jump up when it hits with the high voltage of 20, 30, 40, or 50,000 volts. So this is the simple mechanism. There's no magical science here. This is simple mechanics that is thoroughly explained and understood. And now I have the math to back it up. And when I complete this paper, I hope to give it to just upload it into ResearchGate and give it to the world and help. And they could use this to design starships, basically. It's a gift to humanity that I want them to have. Why is this so important, other than it's really neat and we can fly to other stars? It's important because what most people on this planet don't realize is our particular planet Earth, has an unstable core. And we are susceptible to massive earthquake events and volcanic events. And at any time, this planet could go really bad and a great loss of life can occur. And the only way to avoid that would be really to be off this planet and have a backup planet to be on. So we really need to develop starships so we can colonize some other planet somewhere, just in case things go bad here. We'll have a place to go. I'm working on the math and the science to predict the thing that's in our core of every planet and every star that causes their formation. And that thing basically is a rapidly spinning neutronium sphere. These are the things that cause star formation and planet formation. And if your sphere is too large relative to your crust, you have an unstable planet, you have lots of volcanic activity, the core never cools down because there's a fusion process going on. And let's face it, our core, 4.5 billion years, is still scorching hot. I mean, it's not stable at all. It's like something like 9,392 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's not cooling down. And that makes for very unstable plate tectonics and volcanic activity. And so we are under threat there, and we need to do something about it. And we can't fix it because we can't touch the core. We'll never get any drill down there. There's no technology that we have that can change this situation. The only thing is, if it becomes unstable, we can vent it or something, maybe with volcanic activity, but I don't know.
Let me ask how you came up with the conclusion that the center or the core of the Earth is a rapid spinning Neutronian sphere. And that sounds awesome, by the way.
Yeah, there was a great long process involved in that. And basically, it started with the study of the neutron. And when I started studying the neutron, I did so because it has an odd quirk. And since I believe in intelligent design, which means I believe God created this universe, and in fact, this entire universe, from what I've discovered from near-death and experiencers, mediums, and my own experience, is that we're in a hologram, an objective reality that exists inside the consciousness of God. So therefore, everything that's here, everything that's created, every atom, every molecule, every planet, every being comes from God. So I'm studying the neutron, and the neutron does something that's very odd. And I'm assuming now it's an intelligent design. And the thing that it's doing odd is not an accident. And what does it do? What am I talking about? If you put a neutron, a single neutron, out into outer space by itself, within 15 minutes, it breaks down and becomes a proton and an electron. And so what's the big deal there? Well, that's hydrogen. And we know from our studies at the beginning of the universe needs hydrogen to build stars. Not only stars, but planets. And so I said, that's no accident. So there must be at some point when the universe is first born, there's loads of free neutrons in outer space. And where did they come from? The thing that is made of neutrons, the cosmic egg, the black hole that initiated the first Big Bang and then recycles through it. So I went there and I said, okay, the Big Bang happens. The cosmic egg is made out of solid neutronium that's literally millions of light years across in size. The event is triggered, what I call the Fiore threshold, where the pressure inside it, the temperature becomes so great, it moves out. The heat expands, causing the neutronium sphere, which is humongous, to expand, vaporize. But not only does neutrons, isolated plasma of neutrons, come out, the basic building block within 15 minutes that turns into hydrogen, but lots of fragments, but they're perfect spheres of neutronium that come out, boiled off during the explosion of various sizes. These I call the seeds of life, because they are necessary the neutron is critically important in the creation of the universe. Without these neutron spheres, you won't get galaxies, you won't get stars, because the neutron plasma, which turns into this massive amount of hydrogen, will never come together to form stars and planets. They need a gravitational source of immense strength to gather the gas. The gas then gathers around it. The frame dragging effect that Einstein predicted is true. The gas starts spinning and orbiting around the neutron star, which is in the center of every star in the universe and every planet. And these various sized Neutronian spheres gather this, they form a solid layer of fusion type part. The elements begin to form around it, which explains why the Earth has every element in the periodic table. Why? Because we made it right here billions of years ago. And as it boiled up, the elements boiled up, they started making compounds and so forth, and the crust developed and cooled, and then you have a planet. Well, the same thing is happening in stars. These spheres attract the hydrogen gas, which on its own would never come together. If you ask an astrophysicist, what we think happens is that stars, the gas just kind of gets into knots in outer space, and then it gets denser and it falls together. But they know that the electromagnetic force is many orders of magnitude stronger than gravity. So its own gravity will never pull the hydrogen together, because the electromagnetic force, the repulsive force of the protons and the electrons, will keep them apart, keeping the gas in outer space just like spread apart and never can get together. There needs to be a gravitational source. And so what I'm saying is, where's the evidence? Well, every time we have a supernova, what's left? Either a neutron star or a black hole. What I'm saying is, they didn't just pop up when the explosion happened. They were there all along. They were there to form the star. And what is happening is you got a runaway nuclear reaction that blows off the atmosphere, revealing the thing that was there all along that created the star in the first place. Why physicists couldn't figure that out, I'm shocked that they came up with a whole explanation that makes no sense, and they stick with it. So that's why I studied the neutron to determine, cosmology, theory of super relativity, and come about to understand how planets were formed and how stars were formed, coming up with a sensible, logical explanation that checks all the boxes so that we have what we see today, this nice planet, this beautiful planet, all designed by the Creator. None of this was an accident. And to further state this, that God's attention is on every atom, on every planet, on every being, everywhere in the universe, his full attention. And only a supreme eternal being can handle that. And when you get to the other side, you will be connected to that and understand clearly what I just said. It will become, oh, of course, that's how it works. This all makes sense. We're all part of one. That's the way it really is. That's the truth that you guys are looking for all the time. That's what you want to know. That's called knowledge. So what I'm passing to you, not just what I believe, but from the evidence I've gathered, it's become knowledge in my mind. And now I'm trying to build on that. So that's my research for why I've just, come up with the idea that Neutronian spheres are the basic seeds that come from the Big Bang that gather the galaxies together. There's, in the center of our galaxy is a huge black hole. And what they've discovered, and it's like that in just about every galaxy out there. That's no accident. So you got various size, rapidly spinning neutronium spheres that come out at the Big Bang. And they do all the heavy lifting, literally, all the work, creating the stars, the galaxies, the planets, everything that there is out there in a perfect scheme. And they'll eventually all fall back together, creating a new cosmic egg. And this whole thing will happen all over again.
So like when you say, I mean, fascinating. And I'm wondering when you say Gravity 2.0, it's funny how some people will read something on the internet and then they'll think like they're super, like they've got it all figured out, right? They'll read something that says gravity isn't real. And then they'll repeat that and they'll be like, gravity isn't real. And I'm like, dude, don't get too close to the ledge. So, they don't even know what they're saying. Like, I think what they're attempting to say is gravity isn't what what we've been taught that it is, but the way that it comes out, they sound kind of like a moron. No offense, but
some people say gravity isn't a force.
Well, I haven't heard anybody say that. The text that I read, gravity isn't real. They don't say I don't even think they know what they're talking. Like I said, they don't know what they're talking about. But
obviously, it's real.
Whoa!
Lots of people, and many of them are physicists that will tell you everything's just an abstract idea. There's really nothing real. Particles don't have position. Particles don't have velocity. Particles don't exist really. They're probability waves. There's, it gets very nonsensical the more you dig into quantum mechanics. And quantum mechanics is its own world. It's really good for only if you want to collide particles and predict how many other kinds of particles you can get with certain energy collisions and certain types. It's great, but it doesn't tell you how anything works. And so you'll never get a theory of everything if you use quantum mechanics. Yet, you are punished if you use classical field theory. If you're a student coming up today and you want to use the methods that Einstein used and so forth, they won't give you money for that research. But if you want to do string theory, which is an unprovable, unlikely theory to ever be proven or work, or it's not even testable.
Let me jump in and ask you a question, because this is an interesting, there's a couple of questions I want to ask. So recently, the James Webb Space Telescope, basically, some people are saying debunked the Big Bang. Did you see that? Did you read about that? Do you know anything about that?
What I'm picking up so far is that, which I fully expected, that they're seeing galaxies that are much older than the predicted model. Really hard to explain the predicted model when you've got galaxies way outside in age. 13.7 billion. No, these are like 20 billion out. My theory says the universe is at least 3 times older, at a minimum, than what we have seen now. The problem is we have limited technology, can only see so far. We build a better telescope, all of a sudden we can see more. So now your whole theory where, it just happened that you're so sure of 13.7 billion years ago is obviously wrong. And the guys that won the Nobel Prize about the expanding universe and all that, they probably shouldn't have won the Nobel Prize for that, because all of that theory is falling apart, especially the expanding universe theory. That's not even close to right. And there's astronomers out there that are saying, hey, no, there's big, huge sections. They were saying basically in 1998 that, the Hubble constant and all that, the universe is accelerating, and at the far ends, it's accelerating, even expanding, but even going faster, because they cherry picked the measurements out there to match the model, and then they submitted their data, and that was that. But further research, further experiments, further observations from other astronomers saying, hey, I've got a whole group of galaxies going this way. I got another group going together. Our system, our galactic local system, is a group of galaxies heading towards something called the Great Attractor, which is a huge, massive object that we're being pulled to. And that is being pulled to even a larger massive object. And we're moving at a rate of about 630,000 miles an hour toward this thing out there. And if you look up at the Milky Way at night and you look through to the other side, that's the direction we're heading right now. And we're not moving away from galaxies, we're all moving together. So there's a direct contradiction to their theory that's been ignored and suppressed by the astronomers because it doesn't match the theory of Hubble and the group thereafter in 1998 that came up with the expanding universe theory, because there's whole sections of the universe that are traveling in this direction, one in that direction, not, just expanding outward, but, going in the wrong direction, groups of galaxies coming together. That matches my theory, which says we're not expanding, we're collapsing. And these accelerations, imagine this. These accelerations are not caused by expanding space magically, which we're not detecting at all here, what they would call dark energy that never been proven to exist. Those accelerations at the deep, deep end, furthest away from us. What if what's really happening is if you look in the direction they're going, you're going to find they have a great attractor that's pulling and causing those galaxies to accelerate toward it. So they're Titan-sized black holes spread all around the universe, pulling all these things together. That's what's happening to us. Yet these astronomers are suppressed when they try to make these claims and explain this, when the evidence is clearly there. And the more they look, the more clear it becomes. So the accelerations at the extreme end of the galaxy are happening because it's just simple gravity.
I am still here. We are having some internet opportunities. I'm in the garage down by the river with Starlink. So if it freezes up and I turn my video off, it's to save some bandwidth here. And wow, man. So I just want everybody to know that, Mark is very well versed, obviously, in Einstein's unified field theory. And he writes significantly about some of these technologies because, he obviously it's time, let's build a ship. Was it a coincidence that I just said 2 days ago, I want to build a spaceship in the garage, and then Mark's on the show today? Was that just a coincidence? And he's like, hey, I'm going to teach you how to build a spaceship in the garage. I don't know, but it's pretty freaking cool. I want to hear more about the SlipWave, please. And then I want to hear more about the signature of God. And I'm going to turn my video off to save bandwidth.
Okay. So let's go over the SlipWave. The original one in the book has to do with pressure waves and either using electrostatic or magnetic fields to create motion of an object, a spacecraft. And you'll find in UFO literature and lore, there's two types of UFOs, basically. Ones that use high magnetics and one that use electrostatic fields, like Thomas Townsend Brown used. And the craft that Bob Lazar worked on was also an electrogravitic model. Well, there's your connection. Why you need to know the unified field theory is because you need to know how electrostatic fields or strong electrostatic fields or strong magnetic fields have an effect on gravity. And SlipWave 2.0 was a way of saying I could build a spaceship using this knowledge of how gravity or motion of particles and therefore the motion of spaceships can be used. So you just model your spaceship design after how particles work. Well, in the original version of the SlipWave, I attributed the motion to a pressure gradient. And that may still be partially true, as there's a very a gradient field that's caused by the winding of the electrostatic field, where it starts small. It's a torsion shape. It's a cone shape, and it goes bigger and bigger. And the more it twists, the less dense space becomes at the back end of the particle, and it's more dense at the front end. And this causes a motion forward, basically, a push-pull. Well, my research and studying of the anti-gravity field effect in my lab led to what I thought was an anti-gravity field discovery using the magnets I had. But I discovered later on the measurements I were making weren't really making sense to me, and they caused me to stop and reevaluate my model, my SlipWave model. So what I did is I looked at the magnetic field and electrostatic field, and I noticed that the lines of force go in one end and out the other. And what I was measuring was the magnet was facing one way. I was getting an attraction to the object under measurement, which was a non-magnetic object. And I put a shield on over between it, and it still was doing that. So when I flipped the field back, then I was getting a repulsive. And that caused me to rethink my SlipWave theory, and then came up with this SlipWave 2.0, which made me realize that the cause of motion of particles is a combination of positive field at one end, the front end, causing lines of force to come in, and a negative field at the other end for particles or spaceships that have dipole systems will cause a repulsion and push. So the whole ship goes forward, pulled this way, pushed that way, pull push that way, using just nothing but an electrostatic field, bipolar or dipolar, or a magnetic field. Same way, same method, both work. Magnetic fields use a lot more energy. They're much harder to create the strong field necessary. Takes very advanced technology with a huge power supply system. Something the size of a basketball is going to have to be outputting several megawatts of power in order to get this thing up in the air and moving. It's much easier for us humans to do the electrogravitic model, which only requires a high voltage, which is much easier to produce, and much less current is involved, which means much less power. That's the key. That's the key to get into a system of a creation of ships, which I'm sure that whatever the United States government has made is more than likely electrogravitic. But I have noticed over the years, the U.S. Air Force has been very involved in high magnetic study. And they've been involved at all of our national labs for years, looking for how to make stronger magnetic fields. And they are also been very interested in studying room temperature superconducting. Why? Because you can build electromagnets that are immensely powerful if you have superconducting wire. So, that makes sense. So that's the SlipWave 2.0 basically says the cause of motion is a combination of gravity and anti-gravity developed by the intense use of either electrostatic fields or magnetic fields. That's the new version. That's the final version, and that helps complete the unified field theory, because now I have the model that gives the reason for particle motion. I know exactly how they move now, and it's a surprise ending. It's because of a special gravitational field that develops a vector force, a force with a direction that causes the motion of particles or spaceships. So that's the whole story behind the new SlipWave 2.0 version, the thing that I'm writing about now.
Very cool. Okay. And then, I want to hear more about the star formation. So you said you figured out the breakthrough basically that explains how star formations are created?
Yeah, as we talked about earlier, it's a spinning neutronium spheres. And they just simply gather the gas. This is not even hard or complicated. If you realize that they're there and you make the proper interpretation for our reality is this is how it works. You have a gravitational source of immense strength that pulls and gathers the gas that's floating out there and will never come together otherwise. It's spinning, as you see in the sun. We look at it with our telescopes. We see the gas on the out is spinning around. How do you think it got there? Why do you think it's spinning? It's because the thing in the middle, that solid, which, by the way, when you do measurements, when NASA does measurements, the Tachyline measurements, you can look up on the internet, Wikipedia, you'll see the charts with lines coming out and bending down and merging into one. That's an indication that whatever in there is solid. Their own evidence proves it so. They just refuse to interpret that there's actually a solid thing in there. They start making up new, well, it's gas that's really dense. What do you think is making that gas dense under extreme pressure and holding it there? Gas doesn't just on its own want to come together and become highly pressurized. Space has got no pressure. It should just all expand down and blow away, but it doesn't. Something of immense force is holding the atmosphere of the sun there, even though there's quite literally millions upon millions of nuclear bombs going off all over the sun every second, and that somehow doesn't blow the atmosphere away. There has to be something of incredibly powerful, intense gravity, and we know the sun has a strong gravitational field. And it's not just coming from the hydrogen around it. It's what pulled that hydrogen in that's underneath it, that's holding it, that's causing the fusion process, because the pressure, the atmospheric pressure down near the neutronium sphere is immense. Millions upon millions of atmospheres of pressure. There's got to be something there holding that together. It's just not on its own going to do that and not blow apart, because there's nothing outside of it.
Where do you think these neutrino orbs or what did you call it again? I wrote it down.
Neutrino spheres?
Yeah, where did the neutrino spheres come from?
The Big Bang. The Big Bang was the Big Bang, the cosmic egg, that big thing out there that initially blew up, is made of solid neutronium. It was itself a huge neutronium sphere was literally millions of light years across, and it contained all of the mass and energy of the universe stored conveniently in a very efficient object called a neutron, packed together, tight and stable until the moment it blows apart due to the extreme pressure and energy that was happening in the center. There's a critical mass that happens that causes, I believe, that causes the Big Bang to happen. When you could say it's the touch of God or whatever, but I get into the mechanics of how the old one did it or does it. And who put that there in the first place? Do you think that thing just popped up on its own? It came about, according to my thinking, and it's a belief, that through the power of intention, the old one, the Father, created that universe, our universe. And not only that one, but every other one of an infinite variety going on in all directions until the end of time. Because all of this is inside the creator, the super eternal being that has always been here and is always going to be here and is outside of time and has infinite knowledge and power and does this as part of its existence. Creating universes, happening all the time. We're just in one little niche inside of a superverse, a multiverse that's so large it's incomprehensible. You just can't get your head on around the thing that's the size of infinity that goes on forever. You could look at these universes, they're stacked up, going on forever and separated by God knows how much great distances. And then there's parallel dimensions. There's universes with different laws of physics. There's a lot of things going on there. And how do I kind of know about this stuff? Because every once in a while I read and study a lot of near-death experiencers, and they come back with clues talking about these things. Sometimes they get information on these things, and they make sense to me. And if you want to know how something works, you have to go to the creator of that something. So if you want to know how the universe works, then you need to talk to God. And you know who's done that? People who've had near-death experiences. So I'm assuming they're all not lying or making this up. That most of them, maybe there's a few people out there maybe in it for the money, but for the most part, they're honest, ordinary citizens who've had an experience that was part of their life plan to come back and let us know what the heck is really going on here. We need to know the truth, Rex. That's why what you're doing is vitally important, because you're getting the truth out there where the media is not going to look. If we had a UFO sighting and it landed in Central Park, you want to know what would happen? NBC would say, we're cutting away from that. We can't show that, because they've already been told that they can't do that. The CIA and the NSA, they got people all in the media, and they're not going to allow that truth to be shown. So their camera's going to cut away. They'll surround that block with troops. They'll evacuate all the people, and you won't see anything. And that's their plan, until, somehow it's decided by the aliens or somebody here, maybe in conjunction with them, that they were going to have some contact from that at some point, because they just want to keep us in the dark. It's the humans that are the big enemy here. We have always been our worst enemy. If we could just start loving each other and working together and respecting each other and acknowledging the truth, we can make great advancements. We could end war. We can, join our brothers and sisters in the stars and learn so much more about how the universe works. What a great adventure it would be, instead of this constant recycling of war and death and famine and disasters of all kinds, which keep resetting the button to get the system clean so that we have a chance of hopefully someday getting to a humanity, a race that is civilized and loving and can go out into the universe and be peaceful, and no more manifest destiny. We don't get to go to another planet and kick all the other beings off of there and take over. That's not what I'm saying we should do. We should, in unison and harmony, agree, hey, let us stay here, some of the people here, and some of you people, you could come stay on our planet, and we could share information and so forth. That's kind of what I'm really hoping for. That's what I'm pushing for. That's what God wants for us. And so we should stop fighting that and let that happen.
I think most of us aren't. Most of us are right on board with you. It's the controlling bloodlines that have been doing this for thousands of years. And so it gets to a point, though, where you can't blame them for everything. You actually got to do something about it. And, say, well, it's all their fault. It's them. It's them. It's them. I'm perfect. They're the ones. But anyway, yeah, I get it. Absolutely. So I want you to tell me about the signature of God.
Yeah. Again, what triggers this is intelligent design theory. And basically, I'm saying that like Einstein said, science without religion is lame. Religion without science is blind. So I'm saying we need to merge the two. So I knew that Einstein was looking for a dynamical geometry that is the cause of mass, how particles create their own mass. And so I'm going to show you something here. Make sure your video's on. This is what I went out to find. I didn't know it was going to be this. But that knot, that's called a trefoil knot. It's so hard to get that in here. It's a trefoil knot. Where does that exist? That's the signature of God. And that thing, what I just showed you, exists in a very special place. When I first came up with the idea, I thought to myself, the signature of God is everywhere and in everything, but it's impossible to see. It just popped into my head. And I thought about that. And I said, I know the answer to that riddle. It's in the atom, inside of the atom. We'll never really be able to see that because it's so small, and we can't bounce anything off of it to reveal its structure. But I know inside of there are three things, three quarks. I know that for sure. Science has said that, unless they got that completely wrong, and I don't think they have. They use low energy deflection to determine there's three nodes of deflection inside of neutrons and protons. So there are three quarks. We know they're moving around rapidly, but we have no idea what that pattern is. That's what I'm looking for. That's what Einstein was looking for. Einstein didn't get to figure it out because he was born too early and he didn't know about the quarks yet. So he was just trying to imagine, well, it could be two things or three things or something moving around fast. And so he's playing with all these convolutions. And indeed, one might say that Einstein wants to build matter out of nothing but convolutions of space-time. He's right. In the process, he used all sorts of mathematical devices, but constantly searched for others. I went on the hunt for the signature God, which is that thing that I just showed you. That geometry happens inside of neutrons and protons. The three quarks, I calculated, and in my first paper determined that the three quarks are moving in that pattern at 99% the speed of light, which means they're moving in a highly accelerated manner. And why is that important? Because Einstein said acceleration and gravity are somehow related. He's right. And whenever you move in a circular pattern, that's accelerated motion. Most people don't know that. They think, well, acceleration is when you hit the gas pedal and go back and you feel, yeah, that's one form. But the common form that we're going to use to build mass and gravity comes from that kind of motion. So I went to look for that and I said, I'm going to do what Einstein said. He said one time, I want to know how God created this world. I'm not interested in this or that phenomena, in the spectrum of this or that element. I want to know his thoughts. The rest are just details. So I'm saying he wants to read God's mind, not to be disrespectful, because you can't do that unless God allows it. But I'm saying I'll start looking through near-death experiences, looking for somebody that sees a geometry, something that's got three in it. And I found a lady called Lynn Claire Dennis, who has a near-death experience. She's in a hot air balloon in this race. They go up too high. She loses oxygen. She passes out. She dies. They have an emergency descent. They revive her. She wakes up and she says, I saw this pattern. And she winds up writing a book, and now she works with mathematicians and so forth. I worked with her for a while. I contacted her and I said, I know what that means. That's the three quarks inside of the neutron and the proton. They're moving like that. And that makes sense because that makes a knot. It literally holds them together because that structure forms as a result of their rapid repetitive motion. And not only that, but that thing is rolling and spinning. So the end result is what we see in the microscope, a sphere. a rapidly rotating sphere, which then generates a contraction. So how did I figure that out? By this man named Paul Ehrenfest, who eventually killed himself because he was so upset about quantum mechanics and that he thought he knew nothing when actually he knew almost everything. He and Einstein were good friends. And Ehrenfest came up with a paradox that basically says this, follow this line of thinking closely. He says, look, you have a sphere, not a sphere, let's just use a disk, and you put little matchsticks around the edge of it, and you start spinning it rapidly. And it gets near the speed of light. What happens to those matchsticks? They contract. And that contraction means that the whole, I'll read you the excerpt from Amir Excel's book. Einstein followed the line of reasoning that began with the happiest thought of his life. Still at the Swiss Patent Office, he conducted one of the famous thought experiments. Einstein imagined a circle spinning in space. He gets this idea from Paul Ehrenfest. The center of the circle did not move, but its circumference was moving quickly in a circular direction. Einstein compared what happens in several reference frames, a standard tool he used in developing the special relativity theory. He concluded, using his special relativity, that the boundary of the disk contracted as it spun. There was a force acting on the circle at the boundary, the centrifugal force, and its action was analogous to that of the gravitational force, but the same contraction, underline that affected the outer circle left the diameter unchanged. Thus, Einstein concluded in a way that surprised even him. The ratio of the circle to the diameter was no longer pi. He deduced that in the presence of a gravitational field, the geometry of space was non-Euclidean. It was bent. It was curved in a special way. This is what I like when he saw that and I saw that, I said, oh, of course. You get particles to generate their own mass by their motion internally. Or if an electron moves like this, it has a little mass. And they believe that's true. The quarks moving inside of that, they're generating their own mass by moving within the ether space, which is a real physical object, causing it to contract slightly. That sphere, that rapidly rotating sphere, causes a contraction. That's mass. And then I wrote the equations that proved it. I said, I can make mass. I can predict the mass of a neutron and proton by nothing more than moving those quarks around in that pattern. And I wrote that paper, and it's on ResearchGate, proving without a shadow of a doubt that's where mass comes from. So that paper reveals the origin of mass, which comes from the accelerated motion of unbalanced charges. When they move in that accelerated pattern, mass is a result because space contracts in and around them as they move that way. It all makes sense. It's all logical. There's no magic here. That's how the old man does it. And he showed Lynn Claire Dennis that object surrounded by platonic solids and a sphere in the middle as she was in heaven. And he says to her, I am the source of the sun. I am the energy that forms mass. I just described it to you, how energy in motion forms mass. That is the signature of God.
Awesome. Thank you. That's fantastic. Well, I would like to, we've gone over an hour. If you have a little more time, I'd like to maybe hear more about the light speed, like how to actually build or create an anti-gravity field, and how to build a spaceship in my garage.
Yeah, there's in this SlipWave spatial bias drive, there's some benefits that when you create a really strong electrostatic field and a really strong or a magnetic field and use that mode of operation, there's something else that happens to space. And then once again, I look back to the old guys to find these clues. And the key to making an interstellar spaceship that's worth something, you have to go beyond the speed of light. And so when you create this force field, this warp field. You have to bias space. That's why I call it a spatial bias drive. You have to bend it a certain way to cause certain settings or parameters to change. And what would those parameters be? Well, we know for sure, as scientific fact developed by physicists, namely James Clerk Maxwell, that the speed of light, the maximum speed, is determined by C equals 1 over the square root of permittivity times permeability. So what does that say? It says the speed of light comes about primarily because of these two properties of space, which then again says that space is a real physical object that has properties that are measurable, and they are. I could take the machine out into the middle of outer space and measure permittivity, permeability away from anything. So he who masters reality, he who masters the amount of permittivity and permeability in space, if you take that equation and you start making that number smaller, permittivity and permeability, either one or both, and you approach zero, the speed of light becomes infinite, goes up. So if you know how to make space lose its permittivity and permeability, then you will create a warp field that can go any speed, 1,000 times, 10,000, 100, 1,000,000, 1,000,000,000 times the speed of light. If you desire, all you have to do is pull space apart, make it less dense. The way to do that is either with electrostatic field, with twist space. You take silly putty and you put it on a comic strip picture and you lift it up and you look at it and twist it. Look at what happens to the picture. It expands, it stretches as you're twisting it more and more. You do the same thing to space. The space is a quasi-elastic solid. That was determined by Maxwell, Lorentz, and Einstein, even though he didn't want to say that space was a real object, because he didn't want to fight with his brothers and sisters there in the world of physics. That's a long story, and it's in my book, and I prove why he steers away from that, even though he uses equations that rely on a model of something that has a real metric, a real geometry. And all I'm saying is space is a real thing. It's a physical object that can be affected. So we can stretch it, pull it apart. Magnetic field is a rotation of space that happens as twisted charges move through it. That twisting charge causes space to rotate as it's going by. The rotation and twisting cause a stretch of space. Stretching of space causes a drop in density. A drop in density causes a drop in permittivity and permeability. Now you have the same thing that causes the motion of an alien spacecraft now allows it to go at any speed incredibly fast in a second. And also, at the same time it does this, when you drop the permittivity and permeability, when you stretch space so thin and they're in that bubble in the spaceship, inertia goes away because particles in your body and everything that were within this field can't experience that inertial pull backwards as you're accelerating, so they can go. And we've seen them do it. The Navy, the Air Force, we've seen these spaceships stop, going 2,000 miles an hour, stop and turn and go up, or stop and go right immediately, right turns, which would kill us if inertia was present. Inertia has to be canceled. The SlipWave does that. So it allows you to break the light speed barrier, allows you to travel at any desired speed, depending on the intensity and the frequency of the field that you're emitting using either electrostatic fields or magnetic fields. You can break the light speed barrier. You can go to another star system in minutes. You want to go to Proxima Centauri, 4.2 light years away? It would take you 4.2 years one way, just going at the incredibly slow crawling speed of the speed of light. Go 20,000 times, you could get there in 15 minutes. Now, that's what I'm talking about. That's practical. That allows the civilization to expand and be able to get to places where they need to, just in case there's a disaster on their home planet, or just to explore and meet other civilizations. We could go all over this galaxy in hours or into other galaxies. That's how it works.
How much money do we need to get Elon to kick down so we can make one of these? Because I want to go visit all sorts of star systems, man. Let's go.
This is, I'm sure that the government already has this. They have their own.
We don't in our garage yet.
But this is well within the budget of any IBM, Elon. We're talking a few $1 million to hire some engineers that have that right thinking. They know this, my theory. They understand it. They know it's correct, and they start working the math and constructing the best condenser system, which is another word for capacitor system, that stores the charge field around the bottom of the spacecraft, that will allow it to hover up and move forward, because you actually have to have emitters. One end of the emitter has got Gravity Two, the non-contractive gravity that will pull you in this direction. The other side of the emitter it's got the anti-gravity that's pushing you. So you can just build a simple spacecraft with maybe 3 or 4 emitters in it, and you tilt them. You want to go this way, you tilt them in that way, and it goes that way. You want to go the other way, you want to go straight up, you just point them straight up. And the beauty is you have non-contractive gravity in it. You're still feeling like there's gravity around you, but you don't feel the acceleration because it's non-contractive gravity. Gravity 2 is non-contractive, which means it's non-inertial. It's funny how this all works so perfectly. It can't have been an accident from the universe. This has to be intelligently designed, because this all makes sense and works so perfectly. It's just what you have to have in order to build a spaceship that can perform as they do, as we see them do in across the world every day, as people have witnessed these spacecraft doing these incredible feats of maneuvering and acceleration. It's everything we need is there. And how much is that? Not even millions. I mean, if you just,
could you build it in your garage? Like, do you have the ability?
I can build a small, when I finish this paper, I'm going to try and build one.
Okay. Like, how could I help
out there that I think I can do it?
I want a Leak Project bumper sticker on that shit, man. I'm just saying, like.
Well, I'm just my only concern is I don't want to run into trouble with the government and so forth. Of
course.
I want to do this, and I want to they're probably watching. I want to let them know, look, I'm not against you guys. I'm for you guys. I'm for all people, not just you guys. I'm for everybody. And this is the best thing. So I'm talking to you, talk to your supervisors and let this happen. It's time. There are problems in the Earth's core that are serious, and we could have very big problems. We need to mass produce these craft. Hitachi, IBM, Samsung, every aeronautical place. Most of the aeronautical companies already are aware of this technology. What I'm not sure that they know is the theory. They just reverse engineered the things without knowing why they really work. And I say that because Bob Lazar, smart as he is, he had no clue about the theory. He constantly says, this stuff is like magic. And if you don't know the theory, it does look like magic. Antigravity looks like magic. a new gravitational wave, which, by the way, he says in his interviews with Joe Rogan, he says one side has a gravitational. Matter of fact, he focuses more on the gravity wave than the anti-gravity wave. And he says that the ship forms a cardioid shape. All of that makes sense in my theory. It didn't used to. I used to argue with this guy and say, "Oh, what are you talking about? That doesn't make sense." I learned better. And in fact, when you do the digging and you do the research, either this guy is the luckiest guesser in the world, or he really did work on UFOs. And I think he did. And there's a lot of detractors out there, but there's a lot of people that are convinced, and I'm one of them. Mainly because of the technical things he says. They all make sense. They all fit in my theory. And as far as I can tell, they have found these UFOs and they have taken them apart and to what extent they could and reproduced them. And all I'm trying to do is say, hey, here's the theory. Here's the actual working mechanical model that you could use to design spacecraft. Oh, by the way, that they need to be safe because it's incredibly dangerous traveling beyond the speed or even close to the speed of light. Because if you're not inside of that protective bubble, the SlipWave, and you drop the field while you're going at beyond the speed of light, you're instantly dead. There is no contacting Scotty to fix the problem. Your ship packs, the mass goes up to near infinity for a second, drops down because it's forced to slow down. Inertial drag will then kick in. Everything will be crushed. You'll be a flat pancake, a little black hole ripping through space near the speed of light, and there'll be nothing to fix. It'll be over. You can never collapse the field when you're at speed relative to the absolute stationary ether. I'm not talking about other planets or whatever. The stationary ether, that motion, relative to that is crucial. And when you break the light speed barrier, you're always going to be going faster than the speed of light relative to the stationary ether, the medium, which you're not going through like through air, like a bullet through air. It's not like that. When a spaceship in a SlipWave goes through, all the particles, all the configurations are just geometries that are separated in this bubble to a metric of space that's almost nothing. It's pulled so far apart. So, and that makes sense because how long does it take to get from point A to point B if there's nothing in between it? If there's almost nothing, it's almost infinitely fast. So that space within your bubble is almost nothing there because you pull it apart using the force fields, electrostatic field or magnetic field. You pull it apart, there's nothing there. So you're moving through this bubble of lack of density, permittivity and permeability have dropped to almost nothing. Now, technically speaking, point A, let's say to some other star from point B here on Earth, there's almost nothing there between you two, and you can move that quick through nothing. It's all in the math, it checks out, and it's not really that complicated. You just got to know what you're doing.
Oh yeah, not that complicated, folks. 20,000 times the speed of light. I'm just going to leave you the link to the paper. And Mark, you're awesome, man. Let's keep in contact. Keep us posted on how things are working for you. And I hope somebody with lots of money and a really cool lab and the means to make this contacts you in a nice way and says, you know, we're friends, and I would really like to see that. But oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I'll give them the information free. Go ahead and build it. I encourage people to build the starships or a little demo. Build a little toy, a little hovercraft. Do that. Anybody. I'm going to try. I think it's doable. I'm going to order the pieces and give it a try. I mean, somebody's got to do it. So far, I've been doing everything.
Radio
here.
Shack?
Yeah, Radio Shack. Some of the
Probably not. Probably not.
some
Hey, Mark, can I
movies.
ask you real quick? Can I ask you a question from the audience?
Yeah,
Gravity and magnetism. Would that change the timeline? Can gravity and magnetism change the timeline?
I talk about timeline in my book. We're in a particular timeline, and it's even got a name. Some guy contacted me, and I don't know if he's true or not. He's not one of the guys you see on Stephen Greer or whatever, time travelers. He claims to be one, and he sounded very convincing to me. But he said that he read my book, and he says, you got that right. The time segments, that's exactly how it works. And we're born into a time segment. The only way time travel can work, very basic thing, all of time has to be happening at once in parallel. It's eternal. And if you talk to near-death people, they'll tell you on the other side, there is no time. It's all happening at once in parallel. Perfect. That's the reason why we can travel through time. So if you use some sort of magnetic resonant field, or I don't think, I don't know if a gravitational field, you have to affect space by creating a stargate, which you might probably use very ultra high frequency electromagnetic radiation. You shoot it through a thing called fractal lens. What's a fractal lens? It's a metamaterial that you can shine light through. It's already been invented. It's on ResearchGate. Look up fractal lens. Claim that when you shine light through the fractal lens, it goes infinitely fast. Their claim, not mine. Material scientists say that it's got a lot of great uses. Well, I'm telling you one right now. You make the framework of a Stargate out of that material, shine laser beams through it. They get incredibly high compression, frequency compression. That emitted along with maybe some sound wave, high frequency sound wave, you create a distortion around the space, around the framework. That opens a portal, and you can go into other times and other dimensions. All theoretical. I have not seen that work. It's just based on my knowledge of gravity and electromagnetism and what's necessary in order to open a spatial portal. You have to make something go beyond the speed of light so it can compress the frequency of space. Again, you're biasing space. And the old method was using magnetism. Philadelphia experiment, Montauk project, they were using magnetic resonant fields. The newer versions that I believe are out there now, if anybody's made them, use light and this fractal lens technology, very powerful, go much further, and go back and forward through time, which is not something. I'm really against going backwards in time. I'm not a big fan of that idea, other than it would be nice to visit my childhood again or something like that. But we get beyond that, just a romantic notion. I think that the past should be left alone. But what I've discovered ultimately, time travel, there's a lot of different time segments. And if you mess with this one, odds are you're going to jump segments. And that's very hard to predict. So if you want to mess with time and affect our future, you got to be really careful about messing with the past, because you can jump the whole segment to another reality and your segment just goes off like it was going normally. I hear that the government isn't really all that good at it, and they probably should stop. Hopefully they have.
Well, this reminds me of Reset Zero. So just published a graphic novel. It's like 250 pages worth of artwork and an awesome storyline to go with it. It's kind of like 1984, maybe a little bit, where there could possibly be some truths in fiction. But yeah, it's space time jumpers that go back in time and get artifacts and bring them back to home base. But on their final jump, or not on their final jump, but on one of their jumps, they go back and the world's basically destroyed. They jump back to Göbekli Tepe. They jump back to Antarctica, go inner Earth, and they're like, they get to meet the space rogue Nazis and hot alien chicks and vril chicks and reptilian shapeshifters. It's pretty cool. I'm starting to wonder how much truth and humor is in there. But anyway, folks, that's for a whole other podcast. And Mark, you're awesome, man. I am super looking forward to reading your book. I'm going to have to read it several times. I'm going to have to watch this podcast several times because this is very deep information. You got to know a little bit about physics before you start diving deep into this podcast. So folks, watch it several times. Order Mark's book, read it several times. Glad you did. You'll thank me later.
I spent my whole life studying it. That book is just the notes from 50 years of studying and thinking. And I'm still studying. And perfecting things. So
nice.
It's an ongoing process.
Well, Mark, I appreciate you. And I'm going to leave the links to your book, your website, and the video description box. And real quick, just give a shout out to your book one more time, your website, and are you on YouTube? I think you are on YouTube. Yeah.
Yes, I have a YouTube channel. It's all on my website. You can find the books there, my YouTube channel, my blog, everything. Just some buttons on the front page there. Yeah,
there it is.
Yeah.
You got the book trailer here. You can buy it on Amazon. Get an autographed copy from the website. That's always better. There is a Kindle option available, but here's the link to buy the signed copy. And then the YouTube channel. Click on the YouTube channel and hit the subscribe. I'm already subscribed to your channel, but I don't think I'm logged in under Safari. So yeah, I got to sign in. So just hit that subscribe, hit the bell for all notifications. And that's great. So you got the trailer up here. Much love, everybody. Thanks, Mark. You're awesome, man. Be the change you want to see.